been told to stay away from the story.
Yeah, but you know, she did. She took it, she did it herself, and she's to blame for it. And I will tell you, I will never forgive Amy Goodman for that. And my boyfriend was like in tears. He was weeping. I mean, he was a retired Navy guy. And you guys, you know, Navy guys don't, I mean, you know men, you know, he's like, some men don't cry. He cried. He broke down in tears. And you know, men is hard for sometimes. For some men, not all men, some men cry. I know that, but he did. He was really upset, and he was just like, she won't do this. And he was just like heartbroken. And he was heartbroken for me. And he was just like, and I was locked up in prison at the time, and I'm on the prison phone. What the fuck do you mean Amy Goodman won't do this? How could she not think this is the right story? What did you say to her to make her not do this story? And he was like, I don't know. I told her. I said, did you say this and this and this? And he said, yeah.
Talk like you were today.
Well, I'll tell you, when I was locked up in Carswell, I cried every day. And not when I first went in. I was there supposedly, when I first went in, I was told it was going to be 4 months and then I'd be released. And the first 4 months, I was okay. Because I was like, you know, I'm going to get out of this, you know, and I'm going to tell, you know, and boy, am I going to have a story to tell, and they're not going to shut me up. But when they refused to release me, and I realized that I was not going home, and they said, and at that point they dropped the bomb on me that they were trying to hold me indefinitely. And only when I thought I was going to be held indefinitely, and then that continued for another 8 months, I became absolutely terrified out of my mind. And I began to have very serious post-traumatic stress.
Well, you were saying you hadn't gone through depression before, and I was just wondering how...
I went through deep anxiety, and I was just, it was like my blood pressure was, the stress level was like, it was like a war, a constant war. I was so frightened. I actually colored my hair, okay? My hair actually went white. And it did. It went white.
So you had contact with people you needed to have contact with?
No. And I'll tell you something. I was locked in prison, and they would not let at that point I had a public attorney who made no effort to get me out. And my uncle, who, God bless his heart, lived in Illinois, was driving 700 miles. He was an attorney, though. He had 40 years of experience in corporate law. So he was not a criminal attorney, but he was an outstanding attorney. He read the law. He read up on my type of law. He studied what I needed to do and to move out of the situation. And he made 3 efforts to see me. But because I was locked up in what they call now they're calling a communications center. Yeah, scary people. Yeah, and all the political prisoners, all the women political prisoners are being held in Carswell. So if any of you guys are ever arrested on the Patriot Act, you'll be seeing the inside of Carswell too. But they don't have to let the attorneys onto the base. And so even though he was both family and an attorney, and he was coming on visiting hours, he was showing up when when other family members were allowed on the base. Like if you were in prison and you would be able to have your family members show up. He wasn't asking for any special privileges. We filled all the forms. It was all reported correctly. He would show up at the base and they would say, you're going to see that Iraqi agent. You are not coming into our base. No, there is no prison here. And then they said there was no visiting hours on the weekends. And other people were going right around him and said, you can go in, you can go in, you are not going in. And he drove 700 miles in each direction. And believe it or not, there's an affidavit from him in the back of my book. And so it's all, what I'm telling you is confirmed. It's like, it sounds extraordinary, but it is confirmed. But how did I keep my spirits up? I was terrorized. I was absolutely frightened out of my wits. And it was such I'm just jubilant that it's over. That it's just, I did have a wonderful, loving companion who died. He died 2 days after the court granted my request for a hearing. For 4 years we lived together, and he fought for me to have that hearing. And then as soon as he had cancer at the end, And as soon as he found out that we had the hearing, he died. 2 days, he didn't even live 48 hours after that. And so then I had to have the hearing without him. And that was like very traumatic, but he always had this attitude that was really cool, which was, you know, he hated self-pity, and he wasn't going to tolerate it. And he was like, you know, you chose your values, and you have to, you know, and he had this attitude. He was like, you know, you chose your values, and when you believe in something, you have to be willing to pay the price for your values. And you have to take your consequences. And he said, you should be, if you really believe in what you did, then you should be proud of yourself. And don't let these people take this away from you. So that was his attitude. So
just one last question.
Sure.
I'm just not familiar with the word asset. And Robin asked that question too. Can you just help me clarify what that really is? Is that like a secretary?
Oh, no. An asset is like an operative. It's like a field operative, except an asset is the one. An asset is a human asset is the eyes and ears that goes into the situation, into the room, and has direct contact with events. So assets are very. That's why assets are trained to be very. We are trained to be very observant of the full situation and to be very descriptive of what we're doing, and we're trained not to change what we've seen for any reason. And that was a real threat to the Bush administration, because it's just like you don't ever change your story, because the detail that you think is small, that you think you might compromise, could turn out to be very important, because you are compartmentalized. And you're like seeing a picture of this. And they need to know what this is. They need to see what you see right here. Even if you don't know what's over there or what's over there, they have to know that this here that you're reporting is as accurate and precise as possible.
It's a spot.
Yeah. Except that basically, with the exception in this situation, that the Libyans and the Iraqis both knew who I was from the first day that we went in. And the reason that the Libyans knew immediately, once I told the Libyans, it was over. I mean, you can't ever take it back. And that was that my CIA handler, Dr. Richard Fuse, was involved in the Lockerbie case, and he wanted to be a witness testifying in the Lockerbie case. And so we were starting, before I ever went to the Iraqis, we started talks for the Lockerbie trial with Libya, and we wanted the Libyans to know that if they would accept the trial, that his testimony would help exonerate their people. So then I had to tell them who I was. And so they knew, but I remember the first conversation I had with Mr. Amara at the Libyan embassy. He's like, we want to know why you are here. This is a very important question. It requires a very important answer. And so he was like, we want to know, what the heck are you doing? Because people just didn't, in 1995, when I established contact with the Libya house, people just didn't wander into the Libya house. Believe me. You know, and if I had not been an asset, the FBI would have arrested me the minute I came out of there. You know, so they were told not to touch me. So.
After you were locked up for a year, and then it was 5 years total that you weren't allowed to say anything?
Well, 5 years I was under indictment.
Okay.
So when you're under indictment, anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. However, what they had done was very clever, because when I was released from prison, the corporate media told everybody I was crazy. I had been declared, quote, incompetent to stand trial. And so I must be, you know, there must be something really wrong with me, so most people wouldn't listen to what I had to say anyway.
So what happened for the next 4 years? And then did anybody say anything when you were starting to come out with this? And have you ever heard from anybody at your Mr. whatever his name is at the CIA again?
Well, very good questions. I was actually under indictment for 18 months before I got sent to prison, and then I was held for a year. So when I am released from prison, that's actually the halfway mark of my case. Then I found another attorney, and it took him about another 18 months. It took try to understand what I'm saying to you. 2.5 years I'm under indictment, and I'm released from prison. For another 18 months, the court refuses to grant me a hearing after I've been released from prison. Because I get another attorney, he says, I can take her case, I can work with this woman. As far as I'm concerned, she is competent to help me assist in this defense. She is capable of assisting in her own defense if I'm taking it. He went into court, he stood in front of the judge, he assured the judge that he could work with me, this was not going to be a problem. Because the reason anyone's declared incompetent is if they're not capable of helping their attorney in the case. U.S. Federal Court, Southern District of New York. The first judge was Judge Michael Mukasey. He then retired, and a new judge took over, Loretta Preska. Her husband worked for Daddy Bush. There's a surprise.
So after that, what happened until now?
Oh, and then so we did have the hearing in June of 2008, right before the presidential election in November. And we had begun having, doing radio, people like Michael Herzog at Oracle Broadcasting, Republic Broadcasting. The internet radio was giving me a lot of attention. And they were like, and they were helping to defend me. And when we had my witness testified in court about the 9/11 warnings, then it exploded out more. But again, you know, the most people, yeah, but on the internet, people who pay attention to the internet do know this story. And then they began to talk about it a lot more. But then my case continued another year. And my CIA handler, I'm told, has said that he's very sorry for he thinks it's really a shame what they did to me. He feels sorry for me. He does not feel sorry for what he did, but he says that I'm very sorry that they screwed Susan. But he didn't give me any money for my legal defense.
Did you hear anything from anybody about the book?
Oh, when I do radio interviews, there are funny things that happen, like my phone will cut out, and it'll just go dead. Like I make sure that I have my batteries charged and all this stuff, and the phone will just drop out, and just the battery will just disappear. Or if they can't kill the phone call, sometimes there'll be like a loud beeping noise, beep, 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 and all the way through an hour interview without stop. It'll just continue all the way through.
Directly came up and threatened your publisher? Or...
Oh, well, I have had to self-publish it.
Okay.
Because the corporate press was like, they're like, no one wants to hear about 9/11. No one wants to hear this. And then we were afraid. We did have some smaller publishers who were willing to take it, but we were very much afraid at that point that a smaller publisher would be threatened, and then they would close the book, and they'd stop it. And so I decided that the safest way to go forward would be to self-publish it, and with my hopefully, by the time you realize I've got 700 footnotes, I've got the documents in here, I've got, the affidavits in there, and now I'm safe because no one has sued me, no one's threatened to sue me, and so hopefully in the future, if I write a second book, then hopefully they'll pick up this one and both of them will be distributed. So, thank you.